Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. How are you all this morning? Going to talk about violence. Going to be talking about being ready for it. The continual spectrum of violence. Got a post from on our community section over on Patreon from Triple G, one of our Stonemont patrons over there, with an article that kind of made me think about doing this. That reminds me also a couple of announcements. First, my email provider has switched formats, and I think is messing things up. I'm not tech savvy, as most of you know. I'm confused by how they're doing it. I don't like it. And so I'm not sure also that I'm getting, a matter of fact, I know that I'm not getting all of the, pretty much any notifications of comments and things that people are putting on the Patreon site, because it used to be, before they changed, I would get a notification of every comment. Now I'm getting none, and yet when I go to them, I see all the comments. Okay, so I'm not sure how much may not be getting through to me. If you've sent me an email, for you Stonemont level, if you're not with us on Patreon, I wish you'd come over, because it gives you direct access to me on the Patreon, on the Stonemont level. You can email me with questions or whatever you'd like. So I'm gonna switch that. I've switched, I think, in the About section on YouTube. Instead of using the old scSmith@integrativepreparedness.com, just send it to integrativepreparedness@gmail.com. Yes, I hate feeding into the Gmail, but their stuff works, and if other stuff won't work, I can't use it. That's the way that it is. The way of the world, hey, you want people to use your stuff, make it work. Make it work for them. Make it work easy. Remember that all of the videos are brought to you by my books, the Stonemont series. Tell you everything you possibly need to know about preparing for, surviving, and rebuilding after a total collapse. Plus, it's a great story with great people and bad people, and the good people taking care of the bad people the way they ought to be taken care of. And those you can get through Amazon in paperback or Kindle, and the link is down there. Or you can get them straight from me if you like an autographed copy. There's a way to do that too. It takes longer. I'll have another announcement on T-shirts. I don't want to make this too long before I get to the point of this. And after this, I'm going to do a separate one for Patreon. I got a great message from one of our patrons who has sent my books to, and this was really cool. She sent my books to her son, who is in a federal prison, and apparently he likes them, and he's passed them around to other people, and they like them, and she has started a prison library, all sorts of cool stuff. I'm going to be talking about that. I'm going to make a separate video on that just on Patreon, because it's a cool story. And I'm going to have a little message to inmates, and a story, a personal story of mine that has to do with actually a great regret of mine, of somebody that did a long stretch because of a case I put on them when they shouldn't have gotten a long stretch. It shows the injustice of the justice system. Okay, so that'll be on Patreon. But today I want to talk a little bit about violence. Triple G sent me this. And he titled it, "Always Carry Even When Hiking." That's right. Carry means carry. Prepared means prepared. If you are not always prepared, you're not prepared. It's as simple as that. And this he includes, for those of you on Patreon, a lot of stuff. It's another reason you should be there. A lot of stuff gets posted in the community section by patrons that are just exceptional, and it truly is a community, and it's truly a learning environment over there that you can avail yourself of. And he says, 26-year-old transient man identified as a person of interest in the brutal April murders of a retired couple was formally charged over the slayings Thursday. These two people were just walking down a path, taking their walk on the path they usually go down to, and some dirtbag just passing through apparently just killed them on the path. We had some murders here in Kansas City. A guy, a black guy, because that comes in. I say that because it matters. It doesn't matter to me. It mattered to him. Okay, but he was right out in a very nice area, out along Watts Mill Trail. For anybody in Kansas City that knows, put this down so you don't have to see the glare in my glasses. The guy was out there and killed a number of people who were just walking down the trail. White people. He hated white people, and people who just went out there and walked on a trail. He found a person walking alone. And you know, sometimes it doesn't have to be. A lot of times women think that they're safe if there's a man with them, or a man thinks that they make the woman safe because they're with them. It doesn't. Just like this couple got killed. There was a situation we talked about not too long ago where a man and a woman were out and were attacked. And just because there's a man there, it doesn't mean that they're safe. A gun being there makes it a lot safer, and a gun in the hand makes it a lot safer. Let me take a sip, and then I want to tell you a story about a friend of mine's wife. A very good friend of mine. Actually, he was one of my groomsmen when Kelly and I got married. And some of you may be familiar with him if you followed the fight game in the 80s and the 90s. His name is Bob Thurman. He fought under the name Bob Thunder Thurman. He was undefeated, 8 years, I think, super middleweight, PKA Professional Karate Association, full-time contact kickboxing. I put up one of his fights on the Patreon level. Maybe I'll put it up on Patreon when this goes up. I'll put it as a link so that you can, for those of you who like the fights. Bob was something. He was a Bushidokan black belt under Steve Mackey, second generation under Jim Harrison, a very dear friend of mine who has since passed. Bob was called. He was undefeated for 8 years. He was the first and the only, until a couple of years ago, martial artist that was ever featured in Sports Illustrated, and he was at the time called the man who built ESPN because ESPN was just getting started, and they carried so many of his fights on there that they kind of tagged him with that. Well, Bob was a fighter. He was out one day many moons ago. He was out at a Bushidokan dojo at a place called Ranch Mart. It's a shopping center. It's in Leawood, Kansas. It's one of the nicest areas you could ever possibly think about. And it's not the areas that a Bushidokan, who were some badasses, usually had their places. And I forget whose dojo it was at the time, but it doesn't really matter. He was out there training for his upcoming fight. He was about to defend his title, and he was out there training. And actually, Bob and I have talked about me writing a book about him. He's got quite a story. I'd like to if I have the time and he and I can get things together. So he's out there training, and all of a sudden he says a lot of people started running in and saying a woman's been shot outside. So, of course, they all ran out there, and on the sidewalk was a woman laying there, pool of blood around her head, spilling out of her head. And Bob looked down and saw it was his wife, Betsy. And she was pregnant at the time with their daughter, Maggie, who they both survived. And Maggie is grown up to be one tough nut herself, as is Betsy, who took a round to the head and survived. Well, anyway, what had happened was she had been coming to bring him something up there while he was training, or just to see him, I forget. And a guy came up and pulled a gun, stuck it in her face, said, "Give me your purse." Not clear on what happened yet, because as some of you may know, you take a person who takes a round to the head probably doesn't remember exactly what happened leading up to it. You know, it's the way that the brain works. And, you know, knowing Betsy, she might have said F you, you know. I don't know, or she might have handed the purse. There are ways to do this that those of us who teach this stuff, we teach there are certain ways to handle this to increase your chance of survival. But whatever the situation was, you know, apparently he wasn't satisfied with the purse, or maybe she was too tough for him and kicked him in the and his only way to get her done was to shoot her in the head. Don't know. The point of this is that this was one of the nicest areas you could possibly find in the whole country. And there was a guy with a gun robbing a woman on the sidewalk and shot her in the head. And if we, come forward and we see these two people, it looked like they were older people, maybe retired, just out taking a walk on their normal path. Some dirtbag came along and killed them both. For profit, did he want their, valuables? For fun? There are plenty of people in this world kill people for fun, and the average person doesn't realize that. Or for some strange thing that's just going on in their head. The purpose, the point of this is that it's a dangerous world. And just like you're either prepared or you're not, or you're somewhere along the spectrum, preparedness is a spectrum. You're either prepared for these kinds of things or you're not. And we've talked before, I've talked a lot before, like just, through the classes that I put on, understanding the nature of threats, understanding the three enemies that you're dealing with, and then having the abilities, not just physical, but mental and emotional abilities to deal with that situation effectively. But without a gun, your effectiveness, really takes a dive. I have known some guys. I still know one. He's like a brother to me. He just won't carry a gun. I don't get it. He's a tough guy. I wouldn't want to take him on without a gun. But he has this idea that he'll do everything in the world to, and he said it. He said, I'll do everything in the world to protect my family. And my response to him is, well, you won't carry a gun. Okay. That's what you need. It's a dangerous world. It's going to get more dangerous. And I'm going to talk more about this here in some coming videos. But we're coming up on some interesting weeks here prior to this election. And then no matter which way it goes, it's going to become even more interesting. It could be very dangerous physically, or it could be more threatening to our rights. Okay, one way or the other. But you're either prepared or you're not for those situations. And if you're not, I suggest you get prepared. Carry means carry. It doesn't mean carried sometimes. And I'm sure that many other people have talked about this. I'll tell a story, maybe on, I don't know whether I'll do it here, probably on Patreon, about a young guy who, I won't even get into it. It was just amazing. It just blew my mind, the attitude of this young man. But, some people carry sometimes when they think something's going to happen. And I say, you will never know when something's going to happen. And that's the lesson of Betsy. It was one of the nicest areas in the country. And a guy came at her and shot her in the head. Now, could she have gotten out of that if she had had a gun? I have no idea. If a guy's pointing at you, you don't draw on them and beat them. It's just that, they don't always have a gun pointed at your head. And if you don't have a gun against a guy who has a gun, your odds of winning that situation are really slim. If you do have one, your odds are better. Just put that, no guarantees. There are no guarantees. But your odds are better. And you know that if you don't carry, what are you doing? You're throwing dice in your life. You're betting that nothing's going to happen. Well, something happens to thousands of people every day and every night. Why would you think that you're so special that it would never happen to you? So that's my thought for today. Realize it could happen to you. It can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And if you aren't prepared, this is the time to get prepared. Get the tool, get the training, and develop the understanding. All right? Okay. For those of you with us over on Patreon, I'll be making one about a very interesting one about this inmate situation. And if you're not, come join us. There's so much more over there on Patreon. The link is right down below. Just click it. It'll bring you over or it's at patreon.com/integrative preparedness. It only costs you $1 a month, and there's so much there that you will benefit from. And if you want to go up to the next level, the Stonemont level, that gives you the ability to email me directly with questions and stay in contact with me. There's a way to do that. You can choose your tiers. Choose your tiers. Not these kinds of tiers. And remember, the series Stonemont books, they're available down there at the link, either through Amazon or from me. I think that's about it. You all have a good day. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. So whatever you're a little bit weak on, take a look. Take a look at your preparedness stance and see if you can't tighten it up a little bit, because your life could depend on it. Okay, you all have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.